Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Weronika Przebierała and I have the pleasure of representing the Ordo Iuris Institute in an international coalition of non-governmental organizations which has drawn up a petition to the United Nations calling for measures to be taken to combat surrogacy. Our petition is addressed to the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, to whom we ask to present a draft of the optional protocol to the Convention of the Rights of the Child at the next session of the General Assembly. This protocol provides for the prohibition of commercial surrogacy and advertising of surrogacy, as well as brokering in this procedure. Ladies and gentlemen, surrogacy, otherwise known as surrogate motherhood, violates the dignity and the rights of the child who is reduced to the position of an object in a commercial transaction rather than the subject of a law, but also of a woman who agrees to give birth to this child, often because of her precarious situation in life. Agencies that mediate in surrogacy offer buyers the right to choose the sex, race, even hair color of the child. In various places around the world, the organization Men Having Babies organizes baby fairs for same-sex couples. In 2020, last year, this event took place in Brussels, Paris, Taipei and Tel Aviv, among others. This phenomenon is therefore highly discriminatory and violates fundamental human rights, while it has an important economic dimension for its beneficiaries. The surrogacy market last year was worth $4 billion. Its value forecast for 2027 is at $33.5 billion. Commercial surrogacy has already been condemned by the Council of Europe and the European Parliament, which is important. In October 2016, the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe rejected a draft recommendation allowing surrogacy on the condition of safeguarding the rights of children. The draft stated that surrogacy would constitute a last resort for infertile couples, including homosexual couples. In turn, in December 2015, the European Parliament condemned the practice of surrogacy, which undermines woman's human dignity is undermined, because her body and reproductive functions are used as a commodity. The Parliament stated that this practice should be banned and treated as an urgent issue under human rights instruments. The MEPs asked the Social Affairs, Health and Sustainable Development Committee to do everything in its power to bring about a strong and clear condemnation of all forms of surrogacy. In view of this, in order to strengthen the already existing protection of both the woman and the child, we are asking the United Nations to draft a clear law that would protect the dignity of women and children. I would like to give the floor to the representatives of Femina Europa for France, an NGO fighting for the rights of dignity of women and girls. The organization was founded in 2005 to respond to the spreading gender ideology. Ms. Ali Lejard, the floor is yours.
Mr. Lejard, can you hear me? Proszę o zabranie głosu panią Ali Lejard z Femina Europa. Proszę teraz o zabranie głosu przedstawiciela organizacji Femina Europa. Dobrze, w takim razie poproszę o zabranie głosu teraz panią Poleggi, która jest przedstawicielką organizacji działającej na rzecz dzieci, rodzin, matek, ojców, broniącą życia od poczęcia do naturalnej śmierci, promującą rodzinę opartą o małżeństwo jednego mężczyzny i jednej kobiety i popierającą wolność
one man and one woman, and supporting the freedom and primacy of parents' educational rights.
It's my turn? Okay. Allora, I am Francesca Romana Poleggi, member of the board of Vita and Famiglia NGO. In Italy, the law prohibits surrogacy. It's forbidden. But judges, politicians, and radical lobbies are doing everything possible to legalize it in practice. Public figures, even lawmakers, boast of having both children in California. This inhuman practice has chilling implications that few people know about and which rarely appear in the media and in the public debate. Those who want to regulate surrogacy are very powerful. They easily dominate the media and exploit the public debate. Those who want to regulate surrogacy are very powerful. They exploit people desperate for a baby. Gary Powell, a long-time gay activist, also warns the LGBT world that gay couples are being exploited by the fertility business. They push the LGBT world to the forefront of the pro-surrogacy legalization battle only because of the fertility industry profit motivation, using heterosexual couple above all. Children buyers themselves are often deluded and fooled by the mirage of a made-to-measure child, who is not always born as expected. But the main victims of the abominable practice are women and children. Often surrogates are driven by generosity and altruism, not always by the need for money, especially in rich countries like California. Then they realize that they become slaves of the buyers. The contracts they sign in developed countries, we call in Italian halter contracts, meaning that one of the parties is choked by the other. It are unfair contracts. In developing countries, surrogates often do not even have a contract to enforce. Surrogates always suffer for psychological abuse. In general, agencies and buyers abuse the natural human tendency to want to help others. Then there are chilling testimonies of women who suffer from the Good Samaritan syndrome, which is a psychiatric pathology for which one feels useless if he or she does not do someone good. Then surrogacy presupposes artificial fertilization, which causes a serious physical and psychological damage to women and children. Very rarely such subjects are known, and women are not truthfully and correctly informed. Surrogacy creates even more damage to the physical and mental health of women and children. Women's health is often compromised forever. Several women die, but in this case, the protection of women's sexual and reproductive health seems not to be of interest to the mass media. In addition to the physical problems that all artificial babies have, children born from surrogacy often have psychological and psychiatric problems. You can read about in the studies of Professor Yvonne Olza Fernandez. There is no such a thing as altruistic surrogacy. There is always at least an appropriate reimbursement of expenses. And finally, if the surrogate is a friend or a relative who really does it for free, conflicts will likely develop over the child education. It also happens when there are only two parents. Not to mention those cases in which the child must be explained, for example, that the grandmother is also his mother and therefore his father is also his brother. For all these reasons, I believe it's our duty to fight openly against all types of surrogacy, without any ifs and buts. Surrogacy doesn't need to be regulated. It just needs to be banned worldwide. Surrogacy must become an international crime. Children cannot be bought, nor given as gifts. Thank you.
Bardzo dziękuję. I teraz poproszę o zabranie głosu przedstawiciela organizacji Femina Europa.
Hello, I am Alix Lejard from Femina Europa. Femina Europa gives its support to the petition Stop Surrogacy, which will be addressed to the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights. Femina Europa is a French NGO which promotes the human dignity of women and girls in respect of the complementarities between men and women. That is why, since many years, Femina Europa has been fighting against surrogacy, a new form of slavery for women and babies. Surrogacy is human trafficking organized by the juicy reproduction market, where poor women are treated like child factories and their babies are products for sale, supposed to be with zero defects, otherwise they are abandoned or killed via abortions. Femina Europa wants to underline the ambiguous positions of some governments or international bodies. Two examples. First one, in March 2016, in Strasbourg, at the Council of Europe, the Petra de Sutter report was defeated after a long battle. All forms of surrogacy, both commercial and altruistic, were condemned. All rapporteurs in the EU or at the Council of Europe are assumed to have no conflict of interest with the topic they are supporting. But we saw Dr. Petra de Sutter, a well-known gynecologist in Belgium, head of the Department for Reproductive Medicine in Ghent University Hospital, be involved in the Indian surrogacy market. Femina Europa had the opportunity to report live on the surrogacy clinic Seed of Innocence in New Delhi, which was working in partnership with Dr. Petra de Sutter. These elements were brought to the highest authorities of the Council of Europe, but the Council of Europe never saw fit to react to this obvious conflict of interest. Second example, surrogacy is banned in France, but we see fairs and salons promoting surrogacy flourish in our country. The next salon, named Désir d'enfant, Desire for a Child, will be held in Paris next weekend on the 4th of September. And we see no condemnation by the French government, which leaves a free hand to the lucrative reproduction business. To conclude, we support the petition of Ordo Iuris, asking to reinforce the existing Convention on the Rights of the Child. It is a step to protect women's dignity and children's rights. please do sign this important petition to outlaw commercial surrogacy and defend properly the best interest of the adopted children. Thank you.
Bardzo serdecznie dziękuję i teraz poproszę o zabranie głosu przedstawiciela organizacji Centrum Życia i Rodziny, panią Aleksandrę Mielewczyk, która jest z nami osobiście.
Milewczyk, who is here with us in person.
Szanowni Państwo, reprezentuję
Ladies and gentlemen, I represent the Center for Life and Family Fund, which is a co-organizer and organizer of marches for life and family, which take place in over 140 cities and towns all over Poland. I'm here today to protect unborn children and women whose dignity is compromised by this inhuman practice that we combat today, that is surrogacy. Surrogacy is a serious threat for children who are denied their basic right to have a mother and a father. A loving family, which consists, I would like to stress, of mom and dad, is the basis so that the child can feel safe and develop correctly. We cannot allow that these defenseless human beings are treated like a subject, like an object that one can sell to another. During their fetal development, a child develops a strong relation with the mother who carries it in the womb. And I'm absolutely convinced that a child born in surrogacy will be deprived of having its natural mother forever. Surrogacy is also treating women as objects. Very often they are in poor countries. They come from poor background. These women are treated like tools by people who do not respect human dignity and cannot understand the value of human life. I'd like to stress that surrogacy is, to a certain extent, playing with nature, because very often the clients of surrogates are same-sex couples. I'd like to stress that in the name of the fight against discrimination, a bioethics law has been recently adopted in France. One of the rules of this law is the legalization of medically assisted procreation for everybody, which extends this possibility to lesbian couples and single women who would otherwise not have children. Until very recently, this method had been considered a medical solution to infertility. However, right now, even homosexual couples would try to exercise their right to have children. This opens a door for surrogacy, for making it widespread and legalizing in the future. As has been already mentioned by the previous speaker, this weekend in Paris there will be the second baby market, which proves that surrogacy is not just a threat to come. The desire to have a child. This is the name of this baby market, the second baby market that's going to take place in Paris in 2 days. A child which has its human dignity as well as we do, me or anybody, is treated like an object of trade. The companies offer the buyers customizing the product in question marks, of course, according to their preference, which has also been mentioned. The buyers are able to choose the child's race or hair color. And even though using surrogates by male homosexual couples has so far been forbidden in France, these companies or organizations that advertise themselves officially offer help to homosexual gay couples in importing children from abroad and legalizing their stay in France, which is, well, we could compare it to importing and legalizing cars. Therefore, the Center for Life and Family would like to strongly support the petition prepared by the Ordo Juris Institute and strongly oppose surrogacy. Thank you very much. Now I'd like to ask
która ukazuje nadrzędną rolę wiary katolickiej w życiu społecznym, promującym historię Polski, pana Roberta Bąkiewicza.
Mr. Robert Bąkiewicz.
Państwa, dziękuję bardzo za zaproszenie.
Hello, nice to meet you and thank you for invitation. I'm not speaking here as a representative of an organization, but also a father of 4 children, a husband responsible for their future, for the world that is going to take place, they're going to experience themselves. For many years, fairs have been held in various cities around the world where it is possible to order a surrogate mother to give birth to a child according to a specific order. Although this sounds like a gloomy dystopia, it is a reality which has already been accepted by all Europeans who consider themselves to be progressive defenders of human rights. This weekend, such a fair will be held in Paris. Every year they also take place in Brussels, Taipei, New York and other cities. This abhorrent example of modern slavery and human trafficking it is not countered by any EU institutions. In Brussels, a hotbed of human rights, during the Men Having Babies fair, the services of surrogate mothers are sold to homosexual couples. It is possible to customize the race, sex, or hair color of the child. Although in most Western European countries paid surrogacy is banned, homosexual couples have no problem with hiring a woman to give birth to their child. The Charter of Fundamental Rights of the European Union from 2012, it is emphasized that human dignity is inviolable and must be respected and protected. The procedure of surrogacy not only blatantly counters human dignity, but also leads entire societies into perdition and total moral decline. LGBT activists who seek to relativize all values are now also undermining the ethics on which the Latin civilization was founded. The ethic to which all other categories should be subordinated. Permission to trade in a woman's body and to turn a child into a commodity is like equating the human being with an animal, and thus calling into question the whole Catholic teaching and the foundations of our civilization. Today, talking about morality in public is treated as backwardness. The lack of a strong voice referring to ethics in public debate or in the international arena leads to a gradual undermining of the value of human life and makes abortion, euthanasia, surrogacy and eugenics socially acceptable. Our civilization is not amoral, and ethic refers to all aspects of human life. Surrogacy, abortion and euthanasia are not merely private matters solved between a couple of people, but phenomena that affect the entire society, with an additional impact on future generations. Rarely are these 3 procedures put together, but what they have in common is that they undermine respect for human life and negate the unique status of humanity. The killing of the unborn, the euthanizing the sick, and trafficking of children are the demands of people who care for nothing else but their own needs and pleasures. Our highly developed society should finally categorically prohibit the denigration of human dignity and its reduction to the level of an animal. Many countries of the European Union have so far repented for the criminal practice of slavery and bears the consequences of treating other people like animals. But at the same time, these very countries are now falling into the trap of the amoral ideology, gender ideology, which objectifies human beings and strips them of their human dignity. Condoning commercial surrogacy is a blatant example of the double think by left-wing activists, from feminists to LGBT ideologues and the neo-Marxists in the European Union. Left-wing activists who invoke human rights at every opportunity, at the same time praise human trafficking. Feminists who supposedly fight against the objectification of women remain silent when women are openly treated as commodities and valued for their physical qualities. The European Union, which has taken the fight against discrimination as their main topic, allows the selection of children on the basis of their state of health and rejects as a defective commodity those babies who are born with disabilities or are not consistent with the order, as can be said. The institution that should fight not only against these practices is not only the duty of a Catholic, but of every person who is concerned about human dignity, to provoke an international discussion. And that's what I would like to ask you for. Thank you very much, Mr. Robert. I'd like now to ask to take the floor Mr. Moritz Scholtysik, representative of the organization.
Dear ladies and gentlemen,
Association.
Children are our greatest treasure. Children are our future. That is why, for many years now, we, as Action Alliance Demo für Alle from Germany, have been protesting against and informing about the huge injustice of surrogacy. Surrogacy is a massive violation of the dignity and the rights of the child. Through surrogacy, the child is reduced to a contractual partner. In the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, it is therefore said that every child has the right to know and be cared for by his or her parents. This self-evident right would be taken away from children by legalizing surrogacy. Moreover, because of failed transfers and the process of surrogacy, many unborn children will be killed. Surrogacy also degrades women to birthing machines and exploits them. As recently as 2011, the EU Parliament confirmed in a resolution that surrogacy constitutes an exploitation of the female body and reproductive organs. Behind this exploitation of women and children, there is a huge global industry. Multinational companies earn billions by offering to design the perfect child for the wealthy clients. In many surrogacy clinics, clients can even choose their child's sex, their eye and hair color, their social and character skills. Many companies openly speak of embryo breeding. They recommend reduction by 1 or 2 children in the case of multiple pregnancy. And they assure that a genetically damaged child would not be transferred. What sounds like a dystopian or science fiction movie is already a grim reality. The only principle that applies here is apparently anything goes. We cannot be silent any longer. So what we can do against this? Fortunately, in many countries, surrogacy is still prohibited or at least restricted. But there are more and more attempts to introduce surrogacy through the back door. For example, the EU Commission's planned cross-border recognition of parenthood in the EU would facilitate such unethical reproductive technologies. We have to prevent this. Therefore, on the occasion of the anniversary of the adoption of the Convention on the Rights of the Child by the UN General Assembly, Demo für Alle asks the United Nations to adopt an optional protocol to the Convention on the Rights of the Child, which includes a ban on commercial surrogacy practices, a ban on organization and intermediation in surrogacy, and a ban on advertising of surrogate motherhood. It is absolutely urgent to stop the ongoing attempts to legalize this new form of human trafficking in UN and EU member states for the protection of our women and our children. Thank you.
Bardzo dziękuję i
Thank you very much. And the last speaker I would like to ask is Mr. Juan José Liarte, representative of the Spanish Association of Christian Lawyers and member of the Regional Assembly of Murcia in Spain.
Regarding the presentation of the Ordo Iuris campaign on reproductive exploitation, also called surrogacy, our parliamentary group has agreed to register an initiative in the Regional Parliament of Murcia, Spain. The debate on surrogacy opens up what in philosophy is called a slippery slope and means opening the door to a new and dangerous form of exploitation of the human being, in this case the women, by the human being. We don't want the existence in the near future of an important international business of manufacturing children on demand in women's farms. We don't want to go back to those moments in history when the human being was an object of law instead of a subject of law. We can't afford such a terrible setback. I would like to thank Ordo Iuris for its great work and the heavy burden it accepts by assuming the defense of traditional values in a Europe that seems to have largely deserted them.
bardzo serdecznie dziękuję.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we have finished our presentation. Thank you very much for participation.